Most people wait for the perfect moment to begin, but that moment never really comes. Life will always have obstacles, uncertainties, and excuses ready to keep you still. The truth is, the perfect time is now, because every day you delay is a day lost. Opportunity rarely knocks twice, and when it does, it's usually disguised as hard work. If you want to change your future, you have to begin before you feel completely ready. Progress doesn't happen in your mind, it happens in motion. That first step, no matter how small, breaks the chain of hesitation and sets you on the path toward your goal. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is the birthplace of growth. The road will become clearer as you walk it, not while you stand still planning every turn. Action builds the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Overthinking has a way of turning dreams into doubts. You start imagining everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could go right. The problem with waiting for certainty is that it never arrives. You'll never have all the answers before you start, and you don't need them. What you do need is the courage to move forward with what you have, trusting that you'll learn along the way. Every great achievement you admire began as something small and uncertain. The biggest names, the biggest successes, all had humble beginnings. They didn't wait for a perfect plan, they built it as they went. The lesson here is simple. Your first step doesn't have to be your best step, but it has to happen. Without it, the rest of the journey doesn't exist. The secret to getting ahead isn't about speed, resources, or luck. It's about starting. The moment you take that first action, you separate yourself from the crowd still waiting. You set in motion a chain of events that can transform your life. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the hardest part was simply beginning. Progress begins the moment you take the first step, no matter how small. That first action is like striking a match. It might seem insignificant at the time, but it has the power to light an entire fire. Too many people wait until they have everything figured out before they move, but life doesn't work that way. The road to success is rarely a straight, well-lit path. It's built one step at a time, and the only way to see more of it is to keep walking. Every small step has value because it builds momentum. Momentum is a force that works in your favor once you start moving. The early stages may feel slow and even frustrating, but each action you take compounds, creating results that eventually surprise you. That's why the greatest achievers focus less on where they are today and more on the direction they're heading. Small beginnings teach you lessons big leaps cannot. They train your discipline, sharpen your problem solving, and develop your confidence. With each step, you gather experience, and that experience becomes the foundation for bigger challenges ahead. You don't have to conquer the mountain today. You just have to take one step toward it. Most people underestimate what consistent small actions can do. They imagine success as one giant leap, but in reality, it's 1,000 small moves stacked over time. One call, one page written, 1 hour practiced. These are the seeds of progress. Plant enough of them, and growth becomes inevitable. Remember, the distance between where you are and where you want to be shrinks the moment you move. It doesn't matter if your pace feels slow. What matters is that you're advancing. Every great journey begins with a first step, and if you keep taking them, there will come a day when you'll turn around and wonder how far you've come. All because you started. Overthinking is the silent thief of opportunity. It convinces you to keep analyzing every detail, every risk, and every possible outcome until the spark of action dies out. While you're busy weighing the pros and cons for the 100th time, the moment to act quietly slips away. Success doesn't require you to have every answer before you begin. It requires you to begin so that the answers can reveal themselves along the way. The problem with overthinking is that it creates an illusion of progress. You feel busy, you feel engaged, but you're not moving. You're standing at the starting line, staring at the map, afraid to take that first step. Momentum, however, only comes from movement. It's like trying to steer a parked car. Nothing happens until you turn the key and start driving. Fear loves to hide inside overthinking. It masks itself as being careful or just making sure, but in reality, it's hesitation dressed in logic. The longer you stay in that place, the heavier the decision feels and the harder it becomes to act. Meanwhile, those who take small, imperfect steps quickly learn what works and what doesn't while you're still planning your first move. Action, even when uncertain, beats perfect planning every time. One small step forward teaches you more than 100 hours of speculation. You gain real feedback, you see real results, and you adjust in real time. Overthinking can only give you imaginary problems, but action gives you actual solutions. If you want momentum, you have to break the cycle. Stop waiting for the fear to disappear and start moving despite it. The moment you act, you take control of the pace, the process, and the progress. And soon you'll find that the energy you are spending on endless thinking is far better invested in building your future. Big dreams often look intimidating from a distance. They seem so far away that many people never even try, thinking the gap between where they are and where they want to be is simply too wide. But the truth is, every great achievement in history started with something small, a single decision, a single action, a single step forward. The size of your beginning doesn't determine the size of your success. Your consistency does. Small beginnings are powerful because they are manageable. They allow you to start without being overwhelmed, to focus on what you can do today rather than worrying about the entire journey. When you take these small, deliberate actions every day, you slowly build a foundation that can support your bigger vision. The secret is to trust the process, even when progress feels slow. Consistency turns small efforts into unstoppable momentum. One action repeated over time compounds, much like a seed growing into a tree. At first, the growth may be invisible, but underground, roots are forming, strength is building, and the future is taking shape. Skip the daily discipline, and the dream remains only a wish. Keep showing up, and the dream begins to take form. The beauty of starting small is that it builds resilience. You learn to adapt, to solve problems, and to improve along the way. Each small success fuels your confidence, and each setback teaches you how to keep going. By the time you reach your bigger milestones, you've already developed the habits and mindset needed to maintain them. In the end, your dream is not achieved in a single leap, but in 1,000 small steps taken with intention and persistence. Big results are simply the visible outcome of countless unseen efforts. So start small, stay consistent, and remember, a mighty river begins as a tiny stream. An idea by itself is nothing more than potential. It lives in your mind full of promise, but without action, it remains just that, a promise never fulfilled. You can imagine it, talk about it, and plan for it endlessly, but until you put it into motion, it will never exist in the real world. Action is the bridge between thought and reality, and crossing that bridge is the only way to see your vision take shape. When you act, even in small ways, you breathe life into your ideas. That first phone call, that first written page, that first hour of work. These moments are the turning points that transform concepts into something tangible. No great achievement was ever born from thinking alone. It came from someone willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work. Inaction, on the other hand, has a quiet but destructive power. It gives you a false sense of comfort because you feel safe from mistakes, but in reality, it slowly buries your dreams. The longer you wait, the more your ideas fade, until one day they become nothing more than what could have been. Action is not about having the perfect plan. It's about starting with what you have and improving along the way. Every step you take teaches you something new, giving you insight that no amount of sitting and thinking could ever provide. The process itself shapes you and your idea into something greater than you first imagined. If you want your life to change, you can't just wish for it, you have to act. The world rewards movement, not just intention. So take the step, make the call, write the line. Your ideas are waiting for you to give them life. And the only way to do that is to move from thinking to doing. You don't have to see the whole path before you begin the journey. Too often, people delay action because they can't see every turn, every challenge, and every destination along the way. But life doesn't work like that. The path only reveals itself as you move forward. If you stand still, waiting for a complete map, you'll stay stuck where you are. The courage to start, even with limited vision, is what separates the achievers from the dreamers. The beauty of taking just the next step is that it keeps things simple. You're not overwhelmed by the weight of the entire journey. You're focused on what's right in front of you. And once you take that step, the next one becomes clearer. Each move forward brings new perspective, new opportunities, and a better understanding of what needs to be done. Success is often built in stages, not in one giant leap. Think of it like climbing a staircase in the dark. You don't need to see the top to make it to the next step. All you need is trust that moving forward will eventually lead you where you need to go. The key is not in having perfect vision, but in having consistent motion. When you take one step, you create momentum, and momentum is a powerful force. It builds confidence, reduces fear, and makes progress feel natural instead of forced. The first few steps might be slow, but as you continue, you'll realize the journey isn't as impossible as it first appeared. So don't let uncertainty paralyze you. The most important step you'll ever take is the one you take right now. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. And before you know it, you'll look back and be amazed at how far those simple, consistent steps have carried you. Starting has a way of clearing the fog. Before you take action, everything feels uncertain. The what-ifs and maybes cloud your vision, making the road ahead seem complicated. But the moment you start, even with small steps, the picture begins to sharpen. You see real challenges instead of imagined ones, and real opportunities instead of vague possibilities. Motion has a way of replacing confusion with direction. When you stay stuck in the planning phase, doubt grows. You start questioning your abilities, your timing, and even your dream itself. Waiting feeds hesitation, and hesitation feeds fear. The longer you delay, the heavier the decision feels, until it seems almost impossible to begin. But starting shifts your focus from can I to how can I? And that's when solutions appear. Clarity isn't something you find before you act. It's something you earn through action. Each step you take gives you feedback, showing you what works, what doesn't, and where to adjust. You can read about swimming all day, but you'll never really understand it until you get in the water. In the same way, no amount of thinking can match the clarity that comes from doing. Action also builds confidence, and confidence is the enemy of doubt. The more you act, the more capable you feel, and the less room fear has to control you. What once felt risky starts to feel natural because you've replaced theory with experience. So don't wait for clarity to show up before you move. Begin where you are with what you have, and let the path reveal itself along the way. Remember, the quickest way to clear the fog is to start walking through it. Every person you admire today, every leader, every innovator, every champion started as a beginner. They weren't born with mastery. They built it one imperfect step at a time. At the beginning, they didn't have all the skills, the resources, or the answers. What they did have was the courage to take that first step, even when they felt unsure, unprepared, or afraid. That willingness to start separated them from the countless others who only dreamed. Beginners often face the hardest challenge, believing in themselves before there's any proof they can succeed. It's easy to doubt your abilities when your skills are unpolished and your vision is untested. But every master knows that progress comes from doing, from showing up again and again, learning from mistakes and improving with each attempt. Without that early commitment to begin, mastery would never be possible. The truth is, mastery is not a single leap. It's the result of many small climbs. Each practice session, each failure, each lesson learned is a building block that strengthens your foundation. The path is rarely smooth, but that's exactly what shapes you into someone capable of achieving excellence. It's also important to remember that beginners have an advantage masters no longer have the freedom to explore without the weight of expectations. This is the stage where creativity is raw, mistakes are teachers, and every new skill feels like a breakthrough. Those who embrace this phase often move faster toward mastery because they focus on growth, not perfection. So if you're at the starting line, don't be discouraged. Every master you look up to once stood exactly where you are now, unsure, untested, and inexperienced. The difference is they began. And if you dare to begin, one day someone will look at you as proof that mastery is built, not born. Momentum is a reward you earn after you start moving. At the beginning, every step feels heavy, every push feels slow, and progress seems almost invisible. This is the stage where most people give up, assuming the effort isn't worth it. But what they don't realize is that momentum is building quietly beneath the surface. And once it takes hold, it carries you farther than you imagined. Think of it like pushing a heavy wheel. The first few steps require all your strength, and the wheel barely moves. But as you keep pushing, it begins to roll more easily. Soon, the very thing that resisted you at the start begins to work for you, pulling you forward with its own energy. That's the power of momentum. It transforms effort into acceleration. The key is to keep going long enough to feel that shift. In the early stages, you won't see the results you want, and that's where discipline becomes more important than motivation. Discipline keeps you moving until momentum can take over. And once it does, the work feels lighter, the pace feels natural, and progress becomes harder to stop than to start. Momentum also works in reverse. If you stop for too long, it fades, and you're back to pushing that heavy wheel from a dead stop. That's why consistency matters. Not just bursts of effort, but steady, ongoing action that keeps the motion alive. The more you feed it, the stronger it grows. So don't judge your progress too soon. The early struggle is simply the price of entry for the reward of momentum. Push through the slow start, keep showing up, and one day you'll realize that what once felt like a grind now feels like being carried forward by your own unstoppable force. The biggest barrier to success is not the lack of resources, talent, or even knowledge. It's the failure to start. Many people spend their lives waiting for a perfect moment that never comes, convincing themselves that tomorrow will be better, that they'll be more ready later. But readiness is not what creates progress, action does. Without taking that first step, every dream remains locked in the realm of someday. A starting doesn't guarantee instant success, but it guarantees the possibility of it. The moment you begin, you shift from wishing to working, from hoping to building. Even if your start is small or uncertain, it sets in motion a chain of events that can lead to growth and opportunity. Without that spark, nothing else can happen. Fear often disguises itself as caution, making it seem reasonable to delay. But in truth, each delay strengthens hesitation and weakens confidence. The longer you wait, the heavier the start becomes. By contrast, action, even imperfect action, builds momentum. And momentum makes progress feel easier over time. The first step is always the hardest because it requires breaking through inertia. Once you've moved beyond that barrier, you'll find the road less intimidating and your goal more attainable. And with each step forward, you'll collect lessons, skills, and courage you could never gain by standing still. So remember, the greatest obstacle between you and your success is not a lack of opportunity, but the choice not to act. You don't have to take a giant leap. You just have to take the first step, because once you start, everything else becomes possible.